You are listening to Wicked Psychotherapists, a podcast where two psychotherapists show you that taking care of and learning about mental health doesn't have to be wicked hard.
Hey guys, it's Tanya.
Hi, it's Erin, and welcome to Wicked Psychotherapists.
Yeah, so we are continuing on our binge. We are like a Rolling Stone. We just love Adam Sandler. And as you can tell, we are obsessed with him. So this week, we're going to be talking about his movie, Anger Management. I don't know why I feel the need to announce that like an old school radio host.
You got very serious. It's like, and today we'll be talking about anger management.
I don't know what the heck I was thinking. But yeah, so Anger Management. This is a nice little gem of a film. I like it. It was early 2000s, like 2003. But it, of course, is really great because it has Jack Nicholson. I mean, come on. And he's funny and he's in the lead role. But it really, I think Adam was really stretching out his wings here and kind of like, okay, different types of comedy. And this was really tied in with our podcast because it involves doing a type of therapy for anger
Right.
management, which is bizarre. The mode itself is really odd.
Yeah, it's pretty unconventional.
Yeah, it's so if you have not watched this, again, you all know this. Spoilers we're just discussing the whole movie. So if you're coming here, it's gonna be it's well over 20 years that it's been out.
Maybe pause, watch it, come back if you feel like you need to see it.
Yeah. But it is like a funny movie. It's very, very, I think, not very insightful towards therapy in general, because if my therapist did this to me, I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
But it's just not a great thing.
Yeah. The ethical boundaries maybe they're a little different for Dr. Rydell than they are for anyone else, but
I think so. I think he's in an alternate universe and he's Jack Nicholson, so he just can do whatever the heck he wants. But yeah, so we meet Adam's character, David. What is it, Busnick or something? The first scene we see is him when he's younger. He is crushing on this girl. He's at this like block party in Brooklyn, and he's like, oh, he's kind of watching her, and she comes over and she's like, want to play truth or dare, blah, blah, blah. He gets an opportunity. She dares him, like, kiss me. And then he gets pants by the neighborhood bully, Arnie Shankman. And so he's humiliated and kind of sets the tone for his personality that we see in his life, where he's very much walked upon. He's very meek and does not stick up for his needs, people pleasing. He's even in his job in the beginning, he's going off to this. He was invited by his boss to come to some like conference or meeting or something in St. Louis. And he's calling his boss saying, oh, thank you so much for the opportunity. And his boss just like hangs up on him as he's going to the airport. His boss just doesn't even care.
And he's still pretending like he's talking to him. And his girlfriend's like, he hung up on you already, didn't he? And he's like
she knows him so well. She's like, you're just going to continue to put on the show. So we really see an established, definitive people pleaser, right? Someone who is afraid to push boundaries, but also needs to put on a show for other people to make sure things are okay. And his girlfriend, Linda, who's played by Marissa Tomei, who is just, beautiful and never ages.
No, she doesn't. I mean, well, then she was young, but she's
now she's like still looks like that age.
I know. I had to Google her. I mean, because of course everyone knows her. Well, I don't know if everyone knows her, but from my cousin Vinny. I mean, like that's just like and everything else. I mean, she's just great, and she plays. She's very good as his girlfriend in this.
She definitely balances him out very well, but she definitely is in on seeing that he's being held back in life with this personality trait. Yeah, and then we start to see that he on the plane, after having an incident of people pleasing, this guy sits in his seat and is like, go find another seat. Nah, just go sit in my seat kind of thing. And then we see Dr. Rydell like, oh, over here, come on over here. And so instead of confronting this guy, he's like, oh, I'm going to just take the easier route. He has a lot of avoidance. I would say some social anxiety. He's kind of afraid to confront that.
Mm-hmm.
Confront people.
He's kind of stunted and just really high anxiety too. And it's interesting too, because once we know the premise of the movie, which again, we're going to be spoiling the whole movie for you guys, but it's
That's what we do.
So pretty much you start looking at Dr. Buddy Rydell's or Buddy, every single thing he does, he's trying to trigger him. He's trying to get Dave to have some sort of response. Even the first time when they're even on the plane and they're both on the armrest and Buddy's looking at him, he's like, that's my room. You're on my side. You're doing this. Or when he's like really obnoxious, laughing at the movie. It's just like every single thing. He's like, come on, I'm trying to give this kid a breakthrough, or just trying to, let's not make it a whole 2-week ordeal. It's interesting.
Yeah. He's really laying out the traps for him. He's like, come on, I'm trying to get you to react, trying to get you to confront this. And, because we do realize that from the beginning, this is a setup that was actually placed by his girlfriend. Yeah, very much that spoiler alert. But yeah, so it starts right from the plane. And then he all of a sudden gets arrested for quote unquote assaulting, what do you call it, stewardess or airplane hostess?
Yeah, flight
attendant. Yeah. Flight hostess. I don't know what that was.
What year is this?
At a restaurant.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm living in the 50s.
Yeah. Those women. Yeah. It is funny too, because like when I first was watching it, I had forgot that I watched this movie before. And so I completely forgot everything that happened. So I was like, what? I was like, oh my God, I don't even remember when he assaulted her. Like, how did she end up with that arm thing? Like, I was like, not realizing that maybe it didn't really happen that way, but it's just really funny.
Yeah. Yeah. We kind of learn, if you're a first time watcher of it, you're not aware that this is all a setup, right? And that it's for Buddy to be able to confront these things. It just gets more and more ridiculous. He gets arrested and gets ordered to be in the care of he doesn't get ordered to be in the care then, not at that point the first time. It's just, she's like, well, you need to do some anger management classes. He happens to see a book of Dr. Rydell's and he's like, oh, he does this. He could vouch for me. He could just sign off on this.
This is the guy from the plane. It'll be easy.
And then he's like, well, just come to one so we could say you could hang out. And so he's like, oh, cool. Okay, I'll just get this done and over. This misunderstanding. And again, even just the fact that he doesn't fight for himself in this, because I was thinking, wow, if this grave injustice of being like, oh my gosh, like I did not assault someone and now I have to go and do anger management classes and this is not me and I wasn't raising my voice and I was clearly I was tased.
He was like whisper talking, like, can I have a headset? Can I have this? And sir, why are you yelling at me? It's
yeah, and they're like, keep your voice down. He's like, what? Am I crazy? Definitely being gaslit.
Yeah, like, the whole crew, which we find out we're all paid by Buddy later on. But everyone is like, completely gaslighting him through this whole thing. He's like, wait a minute, am I yelling? Do I have anger issues?
Which is totally like hilarious in this setting, but obviously, if this were happening in real life, which I would hope it wouldn't, I'd hope no therapist would do this.
Yeah.
But, it is pretty hilarious because you're like, okay, this guy was totally just convinced of something. I just remember thinking like, wow, to go to court, to have a charge on my record. No, I would be fighting that and be like, no, you need to show me more evidence. I would at least feel better about it. I don't know. And I think he's just so used to being numb and kind of being like, okay, I need to just get through this and this will just kind of get it out of the way, kind of thing. He's kind of always at that level where it's like too much stress and he just needs to like do the thing to like get over it and just move on kind of thing.
And then even his lawyer, Kevin Nealon, is just kind of like the worst lawyer. He's just like, okay, not really fighting for him. It just, it's just kind of, poor Dave, Adam is just like putting all his faith into him. And it's just like, all right, here's another charge against you. Here's some more stuff. And I don't think he was in on it. I think that the lawyer was actually just a lawyer. Like, I don't think
He's an incompetent lawyer.
Yeah.
Incompetent public defender. Yeah, I mean, was he a public defender, or was that clear? I think
don't
he
know.
was.
He probably was, because I'm sure Dave didn't make a lot of money, in his job.
Yeah. Yeah, he was like an executive assistant, basically. So then he goes to the anger management group, and he's like sitting on the outskirts. He's thinking like, oh, I'm just going to observe. And then he gets invited into the circle because he's kind of like, well, why don't you come join us? Like this is a group of people who are all very much used to, getting upset, maybe because other people are watching them or judging them, or they feel judged. And so they're not going to accept. And I think Dr. Rydell knows this. Like, they're not going to accept him being on the outside and
if
thinking
you're
like
just
he's outside
observing.
of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they naturally, they kind of are like, hey, you got to come over here and like be a part of the group. And he starts to learn everybody's stories, and he's kind of like thinking like, I don't belong here. He even said like, oh, I'm just here for one session. And they're like, oh, so you don't have anger issues.
I thought it was really funny that we see a lot of the same people that we've seen in Mr. Deeds and Waterboy. We see the guy who's like, I'm very sneaky. I'm very bad with the names, but then we have the guy who always has like the lazy eye.
Yeah.
So those characters were there.
We always forget the lazy eye guy.
Like, who are you?
But he's a staple, so we love him, but we don't know his name. It's a pretty funny scene. You kind of learn this cast of characters that you realize like, oh man, he's like, thank God he's thinking like, I'm not going to have to be around them long. But then he realizes like, oh, because the doctor is like afterwards, you don't need this many sessions. I'm going to double it. I'm going to recommend double. And he's like, whoa, what? And then he kind of is like, I can see that you're the type of person that's like a ticking time bomb that will go off and like, be a cashier and shoot everybody that bothers you kind of thing. That's the example he uses. It's so true though. It's kind of like he's somebody that is being pushed around and may possibly come out and just explode one day. And in a way, I guess that is anger management. But we were talking before in our pregame session, and I was saying, like, I don't think it's necessarily anger. I think this is like boundaries. This is people pleasing. This is not being able to communicate your needs and being given this impression that your needs will not be met. So you're just going to kind of get around them in a way. And I think that pattern was set with maybe, like the bullies when he was in that opening scene with Arnie Shankman.
Everything was set with his trauma or whatever happened, like the whole block party saw everything
and mocked even the adults,
even the little girl he was going to kiss, and everybody. So I think that trauma probably made it like, I have to be invisible, I have to be meek, I have to obey the rules, I don't want to draw any attention to myself, and so that's definitely not confronting people. That's letting people push you around. And so that's definitely what Buddy and his girlfriend were trying to get Dave out of, getting him to start confronting people, start to have a voice, to be seen, to be loud.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I really I related to Dave.
Yeah, Dave.
Because I definitely felt that way. And I don't know if you felt this way as just being the youngest of a brood of children. I think that can sometimes come in. That can sometimes be the personality of a youngest of a lot of kids dysfunction, because there's the kind of, I think, working, I personality type for like the youngest in pop culture is very much like, oh, they're the clown, they're the baby, they've been babied kind of thing. Yeah. But I think in our experiences, and I don't want to speak for you, but like I related to this and kind of feeling like, you get kind of bullied, just because you're the youngest one there. It's just kind of natural. And maybe you take in to kind of be like, oh, I'm gonna, maybe, get louder, or maybe you take that internally and you're kind of like, oh, maybe to like not, anger this sibling or whatever, I'm going to kind of do this or kind of walk around that. And we had other factors growing up, I realized, that complicated.
Well, I know my role, like, when you look at the role, I think my role often was like the peacekeeper or trying to make everyone happy. So probably very much like that. I had siblings that were very loud and took up a lot of energy and space. And then I had others that, just normal, but I feel like I yeah, a lot of times it was trying to be quiet or invisible or the peacekeeper.
Yeah, I just thought that was kind of interesting. I wonder if other youngest children, because I feel whenever I read about in pop culture, those personality types and how they're supposed to be with the oldest, the middle, the youngest, I think that's very, very slim to none. That's very much an idealistic,
Yeah.
high functioning family that's very healthy and cared for. And I don't think we see that much of it anymore. And so I think that is just, I just wanted to put that out there, that I
Yeah.
think that that's, kind
Yeah,
of
and
something.
that probably is other things, like if there's been no childhood trauma, like 2-parent home or no addiction or no other things happening, no abuse, physical or verbal or whatever, like who knows what else happens throughout childhood. If you have like the stereotypical perfect childhood, maybe you would have those roles. This role.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's very outdated, and not thought about from a non-perspective
Yeah.
of the
Because it's
youngest
always like, oh,
child.
the oldest is the golden, the middle is forgotten, the youngest is the jokester. Like that's what they expect, and that's not what
Yeah.
happens. And then people feel like, oh wait, I didn't have my role correct because I'm supposed to be the most loved because I'm the oldest, or I'm supposed to be forgotten because I'm the middle, but I get the most attention and I'm the middle, or I'm supposed to be the jokester and I'm the youngest and I'm not. So it's
Yeah.
hard when you have those roles that are supposed to be assigned.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I never related to I was always like, I'm supposed to be the jokester and the carefree one and the person who doesn't feel like I don't know if that came across in my family. I think I was just very invisible and kind of feeling like trying to avoid landmines. That was the way I always felt internally, and my actions were very much in doing things and avoiding things because of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see some kind of crossover in that, and um, wonder if anybody else kinda has that experience. But anyways, back to anger management.
Yeah, back to
Um,
Adam or Dave or whatever.
Dave Adam. He's always Adam no matter
Yeah,
what. He's
yeah, we
always
can't.
Adam.
And he
But
he definitely brought, like I mentioned, Waterboy and everything. I'm sure you saw a bunch of the Waterboy expressions, and like when he body slammed the monk, his old bully. I was like, okay.
yes, he's got, he definitely fits in elements. His singing style, the way he has a very particular, voice and cadence in the
Yeah.
way that he sings things.
Mhm.
When Dr. Rydell was like, "Oh," or Buddy was like, "Oh, sing I Feel Pretty, that will calm you down." And the way he was just like, "I feel pretty." He just kind of gets into his little mode.
Yeah.
But I just, yeah, I love those points when you see them, because if you're an Adam fan, you for sure are going to recognize that. But I was laughing at that when he stopped him in the middle of the bridge and was
Yeah.
just like, "You need to sing,
And
this is the song."
everyone's like, move it, jerk.
That part I was cackling at, yeah. And so then we start to realize that Dr. Rydell's methods are really, really inappropriate, but kind of hilarious, and
Yeah.
sets up this whole deeply, deeply wrong and unethical exposure therapy type of process, which in the end, of course, it was effective, but it's not something we could ever really do and get away with. I think that
Right.
would be very, very difficult. Maybe a coach could do that and be like, I'm going to bill you for whatever this amount every day, and somebody who's really wealthy. But yeah, so he moves in and he's like, I'm here. My method is complete wraparound. I'm here 24/7. I have phone taps. I'm here, I sleep here, I monitor you, I go everywhere you go. He's just like his parasite, for the next 30 days or whatever
Yeah.
it was, which is just overwhelming. And even to the point where he's sleeping, he doesn't have his couch. So he's like, well, I'm going to sleep. I have to sleep in bed with you. And then he's like, oh my God, you can see Adam's face. He's so uncomfortable. And again, these are all scenarios where it's like, you should exert your boundaries. You
Yes.
should be like,
You should be
no.
heck no. You're staying in a hotel. You're not staying in my house. You're not sleeping in bed with me. So there was so many times Dave could have, and I think Buddy was trying to say, like, I'm going to do all this to get a reaction, to see if he's going to have any sort of, not even just anger, just just show like, hey, I can have this little bit of self-confidence and just tell you what I feel without worrying what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah. Although, when I think about it though, in that scenario where Dr. Rydell kind of has a power over him, right? To sign or not sign or recommend jail time.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a power dynamic there. I know this is what we do, right? We psychoanalyze, but it's like almost like it's building and building. And I think that's part of the experiment of this like exposure experiment.
Yeah. And at first the relationship is just kind of like, okay, well, you're kind of come into my group. Then we go back to court. And then, oh, wait, now I have to live with you. And then back to court, it just like keeps getting worse and worse. You don't know what's going to happen. And it's just trying, so then the stakes are higher and higher. It's like, I have to still do what this crazy doctor is recommended I do.
Yeah. And again, I feel that with Dave, and kind of like sometimes you've gotten into this kind of power dynamic with someone and it feels like, oh, if I start exerting a boundary now, like they were my friend and I told them like this kind of secret or something, and maybe I don't want them to tell that, so I have to kind of please them and not anger them and not upset them. And it kind of becomes like an abuse dynamic. I've had that with a good friend of mine for a long time and kind of recognize that. Something where, in this movie, obviously, it's something funny because you just kind of see these ridiculous things that you're like, okay, nobody would put up with this. But, in terms of like sleeping in bed with him and then saying, I sleep naked and then spooning him. And he, instead of like saying, I need to find another person, he's like always kind of trying to avoid confrontation. Always.
Yeah. Then also, if you think on the other end too, like Buddy Rydell, like, he is in it. Like, so like he is 100% invested in his clients. So if you see it the other way, it's like, all right, Linda paid me for a service. I am going to make sure this person learns how to confront people and learns his self-worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's Dr. Rydell is persistent. He really is. I mean, he sets up and he works out, all this network of people to help him and support him, even including a judge and, all the people on the airline and the friend who he hires as the actress, Heather Graham, when they're in Boston. But yeah, starting from, when he moves in and he's like, I got to go everywhere with you. He starts to realize, oh, that means literally everywhere. He's like, oh, well, I'll see ya. I'm going to work. And he's like, oh, well, we're going to work,
like,
kind of thing. And he's like, oh my gosh. And so he's realizing the situation he's in. And he's like, oh my God, he's coming to work. And then he goes in and he makes things he makes them late and he makes things really, awful with his boss to kind of confront him because his boss is pretty abusive. He calls him names and he's really,
he steals his ideas.
Condescending.
Yeah. And he is doesn't really,
jerk.
Yeah, give him credit or just realize his self.
For the husky cat line. Oh God, I love that so much.
I think it's so funny that the fat cat was in like a little starter jacket or like a big sweatshirt. It's just like a big fat kid.
Yes, and like the little beret and like would just sit there. Meatball would just sit there like it's a little meatball. But yeah, I think that and then Dave starts to realize, oh my gosh, this guy is ruining my life. He's really just kind of getting worse and worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it's just Dr. Rydell putting the pressure more and more on him. Like, hey, this is what happens, because that is what builds. The more and more you kind of hold things inside, the more not only does that build up, but the more it's kind of that's what people expect from you after that. And it's like those boundaries and expectations of interaction.
Yeah. And he kept, and I think it was like probably harder for Dr. Rydell too than probably other clients because, Dave wasn't exploding. He wasn't letting out. So it's like, okay, let me do something more like ridiculous. Let me just put in another situation that most people would probably say no or flip out to. But, what are his limits?
He was a tough case. I think he knew that probably from the way Linda described, but he was really seeing like, oh my gosh, this guy really does intake everything and just want to avoid confrontation at all costs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there are moments where he of course he gets angry and upset, like with his bully when he confronts him. But to me, I mean, maybe not the way he does it, but to me, it seems like, okay, that's that's justified that he would be really upset with this. And it seems like he's trying to kind of, maybe he expects even more at that point, confronting it. So it just is like, then it overloads his anger. And then it proves Dr. Rydell right, that like, yeah, you would really, once released, it's going to be a volcano, right? And you're going to punch a monk.
And then they had like such a great bonding too after that. They're like, yeah, this is awesome. And then I think he probably expected like, okay, well, Dave is going to turn a new leaf and he's going to start confronting people. But then when he saw that he still hasn't changed in other ways, and he's like, okay, I need to really up the ante, even more.
Yeah, he had to keep kind of pushing him, and then he goes towards something that's very, very important to him, which is his girlfriend, Linda. And he starts to set him up to look bad, like going with that other woman, kind of challenging him to go up and be with her, even though he has no interest. He's just like, okay, I got to do this. I was sitting there, I was like, oh my gosh, seriously? You are with someone, you don't want to cheat on her, and this person is telling you, oh, just go see if you can pick up this girl, and I was like, oh my God.
But then he kind of put it as like, I challenge you to talk to this person or whatever, and then I will sign the paperwork. I will release you if you do this. You need to take a break from Linda and then do this. He's like, he's not going to want to take a break from his girlfriend, but he did because Dr. Rydell told him to. He said, I don't want to talk to somebody, like I'm, in a relationship or whatever. So he still talks to him, like it's just.
And in that way, when I think about it that way, like that's a good point, because he is still holding that over his head. So he's really training him like, hey, even when somebody has the power like that, you still need to stick up for yourself. So I think that really is a good lesson, kind of, because I think that's what he was really trying to say, is that people will always try to hoard power over you in particular situations, like not in general.
In real life too. I mean, this happens so often to people with their bosses. I don't want to keep having to do overtime all the time, or I don't want to have to work every holiday, or I don't want to be on call, or I don't want to have to answer my email when I'm not at work. There's so many boundaries, but you feel like you have to because your boss is saying it. And a lot of people are so afraid to say no, or afraid of confrontation.
Yeah. And there's definitely, I see, when I think about if like a client like Dave came to me as a therapist, and not in the model that they're using, because I don't use that model. I don't stay 24/7 and I don't sleep with clients at all.
Well, that's good to know.
Wouldn't go to their homes, nothing. So in thinking about that, I think, I would definitely want to work on boundaries and kind of being able to find these things, but it would be a lot tougher just meeting 1 hour a week and going over that, because it would take a lot to dig down there. And I think there's a lot of resistance there, so in this way, Dr. Rydell just kind of like really, really challenges. And I'm not advocating for this type of therapy, because we couldn't do this type of therapy.
Right.
This is it's not ethical, and it's just not, you'd have to pay a lot of money for that. And it would be a lot of time. You have to be able to work individually with a client for like 30 days at a time.
Well, it'd be like your own client, and that's just like going back, a lot of our episodes kind of relate to each other. I was just thinking like, that'd be like the doctor from Sixth Sense. He was just a one-on-one doctor. He could have just.
Oh yeah. Good connection. Yeah. Yeah. He was kind of just with him the whole time. Somehow found his file magically and was with him, like it was dead and still serving.
I guess it is possible, but that would be a lot of work though. I mean, I'm sure there are some people that do that, like kind of like a concierge type of, I am just seeing you or just seeing 2 clients and that's it. That's my full-time job.
That's actually, we'd have to have people who'd be able to pay a large fee up front, and so it would probably be limited to people that would be able to do that. And you'd have to be available, like if you have kids and stuff like that, you can't be with someone 24/7. Of course, this would be like this would be very much modified and ethical if this were true. It's not like they would sleep in the same bed with them, I would hope. And cuddle them and everything. But I think that probably there are some like kind of round round the clock, maybe like you
Right.
said, concierge therapist. I think that's a good way to put it, concierge therapist. Yeah. With kind of a similar objective of like, okay, with this. But in terms of insurance billing and with people just kind of that we deal with day in and day
Mhm.
out, that's not really feasible. But it is interesting though to maybe have one or two to kind of focus on. Is that something you would be interested in if it like obviously if it were within like say, okay, I'm available to you like if you pay this fee up front, like Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 or something.
Instead of having to worry, okay, I only have to worry about these 2 or 3 clients. I feel like I've worked so hard over the years to set boundaries for myself because of my past jobs. I didn't have boundaries, and I feel like I always let my work take over, whether I was working nights, weekends, on call, answering emails on Sunday night, interrupting family dinners, having the effect on vacation. So I really felt like my past jobs affected my mental health and my health and everything. So I think if I were to do something like that, I would have to have some limits of like, okay, I'm here with you every day, Monday through Friday, or maybe Saturdays till 4. There would have to be some boundaries because I don't ever want to get into a situation like I was before in my past life jobs.
Right. Yeah. That's a really good point because I think that kind of defeats the purpose of it is that these people would want somebody accessible at
Right.
any point, and probably, crises don't happen within a certain time frame. But at the same point, for people like us, and I agree with you with like the boundary thing and like setting that and everything, I'm at that point too where I think it would kind of just it wouldn't work out, So it sounds good in theory to be like, "Oh, okay, I'm available to you during these times," kind of thing. But it more than likely people would probably have stuff outside of that and they'd be
Right.
like, "Well, what's the purpose of
Yeah.
this?"
And it probably would. I mean, there are probably therapists that do that and would love to do that. Like, especially if they're, don't have bad work experiences in the past and like don't have PTSD from their past jobs.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I mean, like, but I mean, it could actually be really fun, like if you do that, especially if you have 2 or 3 there clients that you love, and you're just like, okay, this is really good. I think it would be more like coaching.
I think that would kind of violate some feelings of privacy and us getting too enmeshed in their lives and then us setting boundaries and then knowing us as people, like if we're spending that much time. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing to a certain degree, but I think it would push the limits of it.
Yeah,
So it would be very tough. But I don't know, maybe some people are able to find a model that works for them. I don't know, but personally, I would not be interested in it because I think it would kind of defeat the purpose. And then you just feel guilty and stressed out and worried about them when you're outside of that time. I don't
yeah,
think I could do it.
no, because then you're always tied to your phone. Do you have to see them in person? Because it's like a concierge, like, they probably want more, like it's
Right.
so
You're kind of on call. Like, even if you say, like, I'm not available, you kind of are on call.
but then
It's
do you
really
only see
tough.
people in your town because you wanna be like, "Okay, I have to see them in person within 20 minutes," or something? I guess there'd be a lot of different things you'd have to see when you create the contract.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It really would be really tough, I think. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of all of that and watching this movie. I couldn't help but think of the practicals of that. And I was like, I know it's a movie. It's ridiculous. I know therapists or, you know, we don't even know if he's a psychiatrist or a
Yeah.
psychologist. They just call him doctor.
Or if he has the degree that Dr. Phil has. Like, I've
Yeah. Yeah.
sports psych.
Yeah. And I mean, so we don't really know what it is that, and it's a movie. Yeah. So it's really,
Right,
about thinking about that. But I just couldn't, it like made me, like anxious
right,
just kind of thinking about that. But then I was like, it was funny. And
right.
so, Buddy really pushes the limits with Dave. And he's like, this he starts to move in on Linda and basically is just like slowly taking over that relationship. And then gets her to say, "Oh, we need time apart with Dave," and and then he discovers that Buddy is dating her, thinks that, they're going to a ball game, and he thinks, "Oh my god, I told him my idea of a
Yeah.
proposal, he's gonna propose to her."
So Buddy must have told the guys in the group, "Okay, this is what's happening. You guys need to go to Dave's house and let him know that I am at the Yankees game."
and the girls to, like, attend with him and to go to that restaurant kinda thing. So that's another thing that's really tricky, like, getting people involved that are, like, also getting therapy to help someone else getting therapy, like, it's just a whole mess there. Yeah, so they must have been kind of in on it, at least in that part.
And maybe they got free therapy for doing that, because it doesn't seem like super ethical all the time. But and it's interesting because that was, like, the last thing. He's probably like, "Oh gosh, if Dave does not come to the game and do something, then he's failed. This has to be the thing that's going to trigger him." And he was probably so happy when he saw him get onto the field, and then Woody Harrelson lets him on. He's like, "Okay, I got to go." And then Buddy runs to the, up to the wherever it is.
Like,
Yeah. And then still I was like thinking like, "Oh my gosh, Buddy's such a jerk," because I still had no idea what was happening. I was just thinking like, okay, Buddy's gonna make them put the, "Will you marry me right now?" Not realizing that he was in on it, and he was on Team Dave. He wanted Dave to propose.
this is all, like, yeah, just to get him to express his feelings and
Yes.
to not procrastinate. Take what he wants and do what he wants. I mean, some
Yeah.
of the lessons were kind of like, okay, he attacked him and gave him, like, a broken neck or whatever, or sprained neck, and at one point when he said that they're in love, he attacked him, and then he also got into a fight with a monk. Some of the lessons were, like, kind of he responded in violence, which he was like, "Okay, let's keep working on this." So this was kind of like
Yeah.
something that's really important to
Yeah.
him, is he gonna fight for this? And he
Yeah.
did.
And Linda's like, "Okay, I will accept this, or if you kiss me in front of all these people." And he wouldn't even kiss her in public. Like, at the airport, he shook her hand because he's like, "All right, somebody's looking. I can't kiss you if somebody is looking."
Yeah, he's got a high amount of social anxiety, very much.
You passed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
then we got to
He
see.
definitely learned his lessons.
Yeah. Then, we were talking too, like even Rudy Giuliani was in there, like
Mm.
that was before he became how he is now, but he was,
When he was beloved.
yeah, when he was beloved. And, I remember the person's name. It's Rob Schneider that does the "You can do it."
You can do it, yeah. He throws that in. It's like a running theme in his movies, yeah. His cast of characters and themes and people, and yeah, it's all Adam, and we love it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so he learns, hey, you gotta fight for this because you could lose it all. You could lose your girlfriend that you love, the person you love. You could lose your freedom. You could go to jail, and, if you attack people because you haven't spoken out against this the whole time kinda thing. And yeah, and so he learns like, "Hey, this is worth fighting for when it's kind of on the smaller level. I can't avoid it because I could lose all of this." That's kind of the big lesson, which is definitely works. And then, everything's great. He graduates from therapy. They hold a graduation ceremony and sing "I Feel Pretty," which is
And circle each other holding hands, and the whole group.
Yep, and Dave plays a whole joke on them, like pretending like somebody's coming after them, and to scare them, to kind of show like, "Hey, I'm in control. I can stick up for
The
myself."
guy he's like, "Oh, are you Buddy Rydell?"
Yeah. So everything works out. Great movie. Can't do that in therapy,
No.
obviously, not in real life, but
No.
good movie.
And it's fun too because honestly, when we picked this movie, like I was telling you, I was like, I know I've seen this movie. Which once it finished, I was like, oh yeah, I saw this movie, but I forgot the whole premise of it. So it was a nice surprise because I did not even realize that Jack Nicholson was a therapist. I had no idea that. I just figured Adam Sandler was this angry guy. I was thinking it was going to be the opposite. I was thinking like Adam was just like a hothead the whole time and was trying to calm down, but he wasn't.
Yeah, I had a similar, like, I don't know, memory or whatever that's called, the butterfly effect or whatever that they're what is that?
Mandela
What is that?
effect.
The Mandela effect, yeah, that they're calling it or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if that even applies here, but yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, I kind of had these memories of it that I was like, I'm thinking of another movie. So I think we were thinking of another movie, but yeah. So are you ready for
Yes, this is my favorite
our
part.
challenge question?
Oh, a challenge.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Well, I guess maybe not a challenge, maybe a fantastical challenge. Okay. So if you were to conduct the same type of therapy that Dr. Rydell does, except, obviously, like, not, whatever. If you were able to do that,
Yeah.
what would your area of focus be
Oh.
for that? What would you want to do?
Oh. I would do some.
Like he does anger management, but like,
so, this is making me think of Maury Povich. Like, or was it Maury Povich or Geraldo that would all of a sudden, like, you're like, oh, you're afraid of spiders? Guess what? Now there's a whole room of spiders. Or you're afraid of this? Like, he did the ultimate exposure therapy. So I would like to, like, if I did something like that, I think it would be fun to maybe not anger management, but maybe even try to find, okay, what is someone's biggest, like, their phobia? So they're afraid of spiders. Well, spiders I would not want to do. But if they're afraid of like bunny rabbits, or they're afraid of like Monty Python or something. But like if they're afraid of something, some sort of creature or something, I would like to figure out their phobias and do exposure therapy of like, oh, you don't like trains? We're going on a big long train ride. Oh, you don't like this? We're gonna go, skydiving. I'm not gonna go skydiving with them, but if we did something like, I would like to do something like that, because I think that would be kind of fun.
like specific phobias.
Yeah.
That's so funny. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like I thought about my answer to this because I actually thought about this last night as I was falling asleep for some odd reason. And I was like, I would do specific phobias because I think that probably feels more concrete and feels like it would be beneficial for this. So that probably feels good to be able to do. But yeah, I agree. I think it would be kind of satisfying to be able to see and be like, okay, what is something that we can make some progress on? We can see and help this person through this and see the result.
And I think too, that feels more like it could be more behavioral focused too. Like if you need to have that data, like, okay, well, they lasted 1 second, or they didn't last at all, or we had to, it reverted back like 10 steps, and now, whatever. It could be interesting. And I instantly thought of like, I think all of them did. I think Geraldo did it. I think Montel did it.
I think Jerry Springer did it the most. Yeah, honestly. I'm sure he
did. Like, here's a room full of snakes. Like,
yeah. Oh, you're afraid of your, I don't know, confronting your child's potential father and like not knowing who it is. Oh, they're here. They heard everything. Here they are, kind of thing. Let's do it right now. Like the better the confrontation, the
you're
bigger the better.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, so that's anger management. Ours would be phobia management, phobia fighting, or something.
Jerry Springer,
whatever we would come up with.
Or else if you could do a Jerry Springer style therapy, that might be fun.
I would totally not do that because I would be like, oh my gosh, I cannot do this to a person.
I don't even want to do family therapy or couples counseling. So I would not want to do Jerry Springer style. But
yeah,
I'm sure some people would love that.
Yeah, that might be their niche. I don't know, but yeah, so that's anger management. Let us know what you think, if we left anything out or something else you found funny, entertaining, some other points about mental health or just in general. We like it all.
And next show, we're going to get away from Adam for a minute, but he's coming back. Don't worry.
Yeah.
And again, as always, if you guys ever have any suggestions for 80s, 90s, or today of anything, it doesn't have to just be Adam, but let us know.
Yeah, we do really like Adam, but
yeah, he is great.
Yeah, so, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow. We're on all the socials, including YouTube, so you can see our lovely faces and follow along. But yeah, so yeah, I think that's it. Don't forget, stay wicked.
And keep your mind well. All right, have a great week. Bye.
Bye, guys.